Hi, and welcome to Fight Me Nerd, a podcast where we talk about all our favorite things from all kinds of media. Hope you enjoy. Say your house was being burglarized, and all of a sudden a man crashes through the window, stabs the burglars with a rapier, carves a Z into the upholstery of your couch, and jumps back out the window. Would you fuck him?
No, fucker just wrecked our couch.
Yeah, I'm not pleased with this man.
I see. Yeah, no, we're talking about mysterious strangers on the podcast this week. Who are you?
I am Matt Wimmer, sometimes called bismuth telluride powered.
I'm Morgan. I'm very tired.
Hi, I'm Harley. I'm here. Usually. Anyway. So yeah, we're talking about mysterious strangers, people who either the audience or their fellow castmates don't know a whole lot about. Good place to start as any would be probably luchadors. Have you any experience with lucha?
I am peripherally familiar with it.
So you never actually watched any media with like Mexican wrestlers? And
I'm basically aware that it exists.
you didn't even watch like Mucha Lucha on Cartoon Network? No?
No, that was after my time.
How about you, dear?
I watched those handful of episodes of Lucha Underground with you and Danny.
Okay, yeah. So we'll start there, even though we probably should start a bit further back in time as far as Lucha goes. But Lucha Underground is a fantastic piece of media. It's amazing. It's silly. It's so takes itself seriously when it really shouldn't be, because there's a man in a dragon mask vomiting black blood in a very dramatic fashion.
I feel like they take it exactly seriously enough.
Well, yeah, that's true because it's the entertaining amount of seriously. Like, you're correct in for being entertaining. That's definitely what they should be doing. I'm not disparaging them at their choices at all, because it's fucking amazing piece of media. But the thing with luchadors is a lot of the time they won't reveal their personal identities to either the crowd or the audience or, you know, the internet at large at this day and age. Lots of crazy entrances as far as lucha goes, like okay, let me try that again. Mil Muerte. Mil Muerte is the 1,000 Deaths, who his backstory is as a child, his house or city or whatever the fuck, I can't remember, was destroyed, and he crawled out of the rubble and became a luchador. So it's fucking
Seems like a reasonable response.
yeah, it's fucking entertaining. But yeah, and then it's a whole lot of that. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. There's the man called Cage. He is not a man, he is a machine. He's not. He's a cool guy, and my friend Danny got to see him live because we have an event over on the other side of the bay. Hood Slam. In which the man called Cage, who I will say right now, he's not a luchador, he doesn't wear a mask. He's just a super huge white guy. And he fought a cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee at Hood Slam. So, that's amazing.
Why not?
And, you know, when he was joining Lucha Underground, they did a real solid job of, like, building up the mystery around who the fuck is Cage.
Yeah. Well, a little bit, because he did have, like, little personal trailers and that, but...
Yeah, but I mean, there are little personal trailers of some random guy flipping a tire.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. But he had ones where he was talking to Vampiro, didn't he? Or were those after the fact? Sorry, Vampiro is one of the announcers for
It's
Lucha
been a
Underground.
hot minute. I don't think he talked a whole lot, and when he did, it was like standard.
I'm a machine!
Yeah.
Look at that, Pete. Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah, I might actually have to move the mic back from me, which is a new development on this podcast. Cage was fucking really great. He's probably one of my favorite characters on that show, and character he is. But, oh man, I was going to mention something.
About how Evilise and Sexy Star are the best characters. Wrestlers.
Well, you have yet to see Taya Valkyrie, dear.
Oh.
But anyway, for Cage, it was really fun when he was being introduced, because at first you thought he might have been a face, and this is a wrestling term. Are you familiar with it?
No.
Okay, so it's a face and a heel. The good guy and the bad guy. Simple as that. So you thought he might have been a face, but at the very end of the show, he interrupts another wrestler's little bit of victory and just punches him out. And so he's just like, oh, okay, no, he's a bad guy because he did the punchy thing. But anyway, that's one of the things I love about pro wrestling is the, soap opera-esque storylines. There is a character that I'm going to relate my next topic to, because I'm going to go a little bit back in time with Luchador now and talk about the big one, who is El Santo. And El Santo is pretty much either nearly or just plain a folk hero as far as Mexico goes. And there's a character in Lucha Underground called Blue Demon Jr., who is the adopted son of another luchador, Blue Demon, who was the eternal rival of El Santo, which was interesting because they were both the hero character. Blue Demon and El Santo were, I believe, if I'm not getting that screwed up, and if Wikipedia is not lying to me. But anyway, so El Santo is so huge that he has his own line of comic books. He has starred in 52 luchador movies. He had a Cartoon Network cartoon called El Santo versus the Clones. And there's actually currently another El Santo cartoon in the works. He's credited as the inspiration for both the cartoon Mucha Lucha and El Tigre. And I believe there's a tribute to him in Mucha Lucha called El Rey. Anyway, that's as far as I kind of want to go on that one, but I think you have another luchador to talk about.
The Masked Royale?
The Masked Royale, yeah.
Who is, only mysterious in the most tongue-of-cheek possible ways, because of course it's Professor Kukui.
Yeah, so we're talking about Pokemon now. Imagine that. There is actually a luchador Pokemon called Halucha. But the Masked Royale appears in the latest, as of day of recording, Pokemon games, Sun and Moon. And
yeah, you go to the arena where you do Pokemon Battle Royales, and there's one person who's the champion of the Battle Royales, and he wears a mask, and everyone's like, oh, it's so mysterious, who is he? And
who is that masked man?
Yeah.
And it's Professor Kukui, obviously, but nobody ever admits it. Except for one person who's like, you guys know it's Professor, right? And everyone's like, shut up.
Including his wife.
Yes.
You can't break the
mystique.
mystique, yeah.
Yeah, can't break kayfabe. Another wrestling term that Matt might not be.
Nope.
Okay, yeah.
Never been a big wrestling fan.
Okay, kayfabe is the alternate reality that pro wrestling exists in.
Gotcha.
It's the reality where people get Irish whipped and actually fall into the, the fucking ropes. I can think of the word ropes. Jesus Christ.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. But yes, when people actually fly into the ropes and get Irish whipped and fall down, that is the kayfabe reality.
Gotcha.
And one of the I Love Super Best Friend cast, as I've probably mentioned before, and one of their superpowers that got suggested to them by their fans is the power to enforce kayfabe on reality.
That would be a fun one.
Yeah. But anyway, since we're talking about superpowers, let's probably talk about superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the big one as far as Mysterious Stranger goes. Almost never to the actual audience. Except maybe in the case of Deadpool every now and then. He's Wade Wilson, but
there is that whole plot line where you aren't sure if he's really Wade Wilson or if T-Ray is actually Wade Wilson and whoever Deadpool is murdered him and stole his identity.
Yeah.
In all absolute fairness,
because Mysterious Past is definitely a component of Mysterious Stranger.
Of course.
Yeah. Also, who the fuck is T-Ray? I didn't get that far in the comics.
Well, he's either Wade Wilson or he's just a guy. He's a bounty hunter.
Okay.
Wade Wilson works for this bounty hunter collective in which Weasel and all them and whatnot in the movies, as is shown. But T-Ray's just a guy as far as I know.
Okay.
Now, in all fairness,
Typhoid
as
Mary.
far as who Wade Wilson is or whether Wade Wilson is Deadpool is disputable for the mere fact that between the healing factor and the cancer constantly battling each other out.
Yes, he's technically
Is this
different.
even really the same person?
I mean...
got that healing factor?
Well, as far as that goes, as far as persistence of consciousness, you can very easily say yes or no, depending on your fucking metaphysics.
Are we
opinion.
completely different people every 7 years or whatever? How long it takes for every cell in your body to change?
10.
No.
I mean,
10?
yeah, you can
Okay.
say that easily about somebody who's undergoing a normal
Yes,
progression.
I think
but
what
in his case, it's different, right?
in his case, there's a lot more mental fuckery going on.
Oh,
but
for sure.
Yeah, I honestly can't answer that question because we don't fucking know.
Yeah.
We don't have a definition for consciousness, so we should probably move on. Anyhow, so yeah, the big one here is obviously Batman, the Caped Crusader, etc., etc. Yeah, Batman, his whole shtick is being mysterious and creepy and scaring crime.
And I guess he is two criminals in Gotham who aren't already aware of his existence.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, because again, this is not from the audience's perspective as far as mysteriousness goes. The audience almost always knows who the mysterious man is if it's the hero. If it's the villain, however, it can take a bit more time. Do you want to talk about Hush?
Oh, yes. Okay. So Hush is the name of a story arc that Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee did. I don't
Jeff
remember
Loeb?
when. Jeff Loeb.
Loeb?
Yes.
Ears? Jeff Ears?
Loeb.
Spelled slightly differently, but yeah, sounds the same.
No, that's Lobe is how you spell Loeb.
Yeah, but his name is spelled Loeb.
Oh. Why?
That's his fucking
Because
name?
it's a name and
Yeah,
not
no,
a body part.
I am interested in the corruption of names over time, since my last name is Hammock, and it is not spelled how you think it is. So, anyway, back to Hush. What are you looking up? Are you arguing with me right now about a thing I already agreed is fucking what? Are you actually looking up name origins right now on the podcast?
Yes.
She's on Ancestry.com. Because I said a thing and it pissed her off, apparently.
No, you asked me where the name comes from. So
We're
now
doing a podcast!
Hey, let's be fair.
Later.
There's a difference between being pissed off and being inspired to seek knowledge.
No, there isn't.
That they often have a lot in common.
Okay, do you
Anyway.
want to talk about fucking Hush or fucking Loeb family history? Fucking shit. Get the fuck out of
We
here.
can do both. I don't see why we can't do both.
I'm doing the funniest for the podcast,
I
dear.
know. You still
My
might
out-
end up on the couch.
My outrage is hilarious.
Sure, dear. Pat,
Anyway.
pat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they did this story arc Hush where the villain Hush is introduced. I don't think they even called him that until the end of the comic. He's just a weird guy on bandages standing on rooftops, quoting Aristotle at whatever the fuck Batman's doing.
Fucking quoting Aristotle.
Why not? I mean, what else are you gonna do with your spare time?
I mean, that's Rorschach levels of overdramaticness.
Yeah.
And I will whisper. It's who brute. Wait, no, that's Caesar. Never mind. Carry
As
on.
the comic, as the story progresses, Batman knows that someone is manipulating every villain in Gotham that he's dealt with, because that's, as far as I know, Jeff Loeb's thing.
Mhm.
To be fair, I've only read Hush and Long Halloween, but
Which, as far as we know, might be the only things he's read.
I think
I'm
he's
fucking around.
almost certainly
Quite a
done
lot
more.
more.
Fucking
Anyway.
around.
As the story progresses, it's heavily implied the guy under the bandages is Harvey Dent, who is running around no longer Two-Face and in the same trench coat. Because why not?
They go to the
When
same
it's
tailor.
implied
What
that
do you
it's
want?
the Joker, it's implied that he is Jason Todd, although that turns out to be Clayface wearing the Hush costume and making himself look like Jason Todd underneath it, an aged up version.
What a twist.
It turns
Once
out
again,
to
why not?
be his
Comic books, man.
Bruce Wayne's childhood friend Tommy Elliot, who's all butthurt because he tried to murder his parents and Thomas Wayne, Batman's dad, managed to save his mother
Ah,
because he wanted his inheritance sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same Batman shtick that always is, in which the villain is a dark reflection of Batman.
Yeah.
Shocker. Speaking of Shocker, Spider-Man. I don't know. I actually had no. I just said shocker and inspiration took me.
He's not all that mysterious. He talks too much.
No. He's not mysterious to. Again, he's not mysterious to the audience. He's mysterious to everybody else because like 37 different Spider-Man plot lines is somebody either figuring out or trying to figure out who Spider-Man is. Like one of the most famous plot lines from the death of Gwen Stacy is because Green Goblin finally figured out who Spider-Man is. But Spider-Man is, like, probably, if I'm being honest, one of my favorite superheroes, just because he, unlike Batman, was conceptualized as much more human. Like, Batman, you wouldn't get a lot of Bruce Wayne, and if you did, it's always tongue-in-cheek antics. Same with Superman, but with Spider-Man, you get, you know, oh, I've got my old teacher became a supervillain. I got, you know, I have to do all this stuff. My best friend's dad.
Insane.
Then my best friend, etc., 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 etc. You know, it's
that's the big difference with Spider-Man, and one of the reasons why he's always been so popular is because he's a person who shares a lot in common with the people reading his book.
Yeah.
He has a real life, and that real life is similar to the reader.
Yeah, I've heard it described very well before as being the polar opposite of superheroes, where the superhero's identity is really their identity, and their secret identity, Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne, is the mask. Whereas,
well, that's very much true of Batman, right?
That's a popular thing to say about Batman,
yeah.
And then especially more so in that it's come out that way. With Spider-Man, it's always been the opposite. It's always, I'm Peter Parker, and he's always accidentally telling people he's Peter Parker, you know, that kind of thing. You had something to say?
Oh, just going back to Batman for a minute, interestingly, one of the tropes with Batman being the real identity is like someone trying to brainwash him by being his voice. I think this is an episode of Batman Beyond where they try to convince him that he's hearing voices and that it's actually a voice in his head. And he's like, well, obviously this isn't real because it keeps calling me Bruce.
Yeah.
That is not how I refer to myself.
Yeah, no, that's one of the more hilarious fucking scenes. I'm sure you've seen this meme floating around where it's a few panels of the comic where Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman are all holding onto the lasso of truth, and Wonder Woman tells them that her real identity, Clark Kent, tells them he's Clark Kent, and Batman just goes, Batman. And he's holding onto the fucking lasso of truth when he says that, so you know it's true.
In a lot of ways, I think Batman is probably the most crazy of the superheroes.
Oh yeah, no, he's
even
bonkers.
In some ways more so than Slade or Wade, right?
Like okay, well, where does Superman take Lex Luthor versus where does Batman take every single one of his villains? Luthor goes to jail.
Yeah.
All of Batman's villains go to the insane asylum.
Yeah.
Catwoman would take issue with that, but
Doesn't she go to Arkham?
in some versions, but there are also versions where she very explicitly goes, "Oh no, I'm Blackgate, not Arkham."
Yeah. With Spider-Man, I should mention that one of my personal favorite things about Spider-Man is J. Jonah Jameson. Like, he's amazing. In the new Spider-Man game, he has an Alex Jones-esque podcast instead of working at the Daily Planet, because I guess he got fired or retired or whatever. I haven't actually played the game yet. Don't fucking spoil it. Anyway, and that is a much more broad spectrum of people reacting to a superhero than we normally get, because we either get people like Lex Luthor who want to destroy Superman, or people who really, really like Superman. There's not a lot of degrees in between.
Right.
J. Jonah Jameson is an asshole. He's not a supervillain.
Yeah.
Well, until he actually hires the Scorpion. But anyway, that's another fucking... Don't have to get that deep. Anyway.
I mean, in fairness, he represents something that's very common among supervillains. There's that level of insanity, right? That obsession with the superhero.
Yeah. There's that level of obsession with the superhero, yeah, but at the same time, again, he's not a supervillain, he's just a dick.
I think if we're going to discuss superheroes and supervillains, especially if we're going to talk about Batman, who's more mysterious than the Joker?
Oh yeah, well, it's interesting because he's definitely too...
Is it still a mystery if there's no answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
No, that's the most important kind of mystery.
It's the lack of an answer that provides you a mystery in the first place.
Yeah, there's Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite authors and comic book writers. Nobody in here is... Have you guys read The Sandman?
No.
tiny bits and pieces, but not all of it.
Fucking Philistines. Anyway, so The Sandman is one of my really, really formative comic book experiences. I, am going to staple your guys' eyelids open and make you read it one of these days.
Christmas is coming.
That's true. Yeah. So, in The Sandman, there's a story called The Parliament of Rooks, in which a bunch of rooks gather around this one rook, and the one rook starts cawing. After a while, he stops, and one of two things always happens. Either all the other rooks kill that one rook, or they all fly away. And the person telling that particular story doesn't give you an answer. They just leave. But then his brother comes in and shouts from the window as everybody's leaving what the answer is, which is that the rook is telling a story. And if they like the story, they all leave. And if they don't like the story, they kill him. Then, the person who was originally telling the story kills his brother because he gave away the mystery. Because a story lasts until it's over, but a mystery lasts a lifetime. Anyhow, one of my favorite little stories. There's not a lot of mysterious strangers there, since I didn't mention character names. But if you read The Sandman, they'll quickly become obvious who's going to be telling that story later on. Anywho, what were we talking about before I talked about Sandman? We were talking about Joker, right? So yeah, I think Joker counts.
Okay.
I mean, we continue to have the occasional tidbit of who he might be, or what he might be related to.
Yeah. What's interesting is I think we're so familiar with the character of the Joker at this point that nobody particularly cares who he is.
It's one of those few characters where breaking the mystery would ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, and at the same time, we get a couple stories that do a very good job of giving the Joker an origin, but at the same time, the author takes careful steps, I guess. Fucking can't remember the word.
Pains?
Yes, the author takes pains to mention that. For example, in The Killing Joke, he mentions that as far as my past is questions about my past are concerned, I prefer multiple choice. So
yeah, no, look at one. I personally think one of the best representations of the Joker is in The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. How many stories does he give about himself in that movie? Yeah,
he gives 3 different origins, I think.
And every one of them seems equally valid, and every one of them would be a fantastic answer to the question. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to know which one it is.
Yeah, no, I think the thing about the Joker is being a dark reflection of Batman is, part of it is that the Joker puts himself forward as the everyman.
Yeah.
Where Joker thinks, in The Killing Joke, the famous phrase is one bad day is what it takes from a normal man to become a Joker, mm-hmm. for example. But we're getting a little heavy with it here. So let's move on to another topic. I'd like to talk briefly about that guy I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Zorro. So Zorro is about 99 years old now. He's turning 100 next year. And he's been played by Anthony Hopkins, Antonio Banderas in the same movie, for example, and is probably one of the inspirations behind Batman.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
And within the Batman universe, depending on who's writing explicitly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Zorro is always really fun. Did you ever dress up as Zorro for Halloween, either of you?
I think I may have at least once.
I distinctly remember dressing up as Zorro for Halloween once. Because the movie The Mask of Zorro with Anthony Hopkins and Antonio Banderas, which is a remake of the 1920 movie, obviously, came out in 1998, back when I was 6. Definitely had a Zorro mask and a little rapier that was taken away from me frequently. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? He's probably the Californian equivalent of Robin Hood. Much more modern equivalent of Robin Hood, but it set in the time in which Spain still owned California, and I don't really think we need to get into the plot of the movie or anything like that, but he definitely deserves a mention as one of the OG modern era mysterious strangers. I think he's only preceded by, I'd say, the Scarlet Pimpernel, right? There's obviously characters with the air of mystery about them earlier than that. Maybe you could shoehorn Dracula in as being mysterious because he's just...
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because, I mean, for a long time, he goes to visit this castle. This is the first time he's met this guy, and he's really fucking weird. And you don't know why, because you don't know he's Dracula yet.
Yeah. Well, you know he's Dracula. He's the Count, but you don't know that Dracula, the Count, is also...
A fucking vampire.
Yeah. A fucking vampire with mysterious, deadly powers and ghost ships and whatnot. The Demeter. We haven't talked We've talked a lot about heroes and a lot about a couple specific villains, but there are the villains that are more non-specific, which is the Dark Mysterious Council.
Oh, the Council of 13.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the Council of 13 from Venture Brothers, which is a hilarious parody of the Dark Mysterious Council of other,
Every other thing.
Yeah. Which is basically the people who all have their faces or forms obscured in various different ways, but the one
it's
from...
one of those many tropes that's done to death, and that's why, of course, it must be parodied.
Yeah, and it is... Council of 13 is probably one of the best parodies out there of this particular thing. Like, Venture Brothers is written so well. All of these different personalities come to life behind their little screens there. One of my favorite episodes is in which a couple supervillains are being interrogated by the council, and surprise, we were throwing you a wedding the whole time. Yeah, that's probably, like, hands down one of my favorite episodes. I'd have to think really hard to figure out one that would top that in my personal list of top Venture Brothers episodes. Should we talk about some Sovereign at all? David Bowie?
It's not David Bowie.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you positive? I'm just fucking around. Yes, it's not David Bowie, but it's totally David Bowie for a while there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a shapeshifter who is the sort of leader, quote-unquote, of the Council of 13 and all that.
Of the Guild of Calamitous Intent.
Yes, the Guild of Calamitous Intent. And he takes the form of David Bowie, because he can. He's a shapeshifter.
And at least in one of the versions of what the fuck he is, it's implied that he did used to hang out with David Bowie. And, like, he's on one of the album covers in whatever form he was in at the time.
Council of 13, there you go.
And actually, for that matter, the strangers are certainly mysterious strangers.
Oh, yes, and another mysterious stranger from Venture Brothers is my favorite character from Venture Brothers. Gillinger. Dr. Henry Gillinger. And this is my magical mother bag. Have you ever watched Venture Brothers?
I've seen a couple episodes.
Yes. Have you seen an episode with Dr. Henry Gillinger?
I don't think so.
You should look up a YouTube compilation of just him. He's amazing.
He's villain Mary Poppins.
He's villain Mary Poppins. He's amazing.
All right, then.
He's such a positive, negative influence.
I mean, he's trying to do good things.
He's trying to do good things to make people bad people.
I mean, he fights off his brothers, the other strangers.
Well, yes, but he also tells Dr. Venture to murder his brother.
I think it was less murder and more the standard cat and mouse villain game that Dr. Venture had been playing with the Monarch the whole series.
Well, yeah, I suppose you could make the argument that he was just trying to give Dr. Venture some therapy.
Yeah, certainly.
Because, boy, if any character in that fucking show needs it, it's Dr. Rusty
They all
Venture.
do. God,
Oh, yes.
all of them.
All of them, all at once, all in the same room.
Jesus.
There are actually fucking episodes where they just go to therapy.
That was a good episode.
Yeah.
So let's stay comics and cartoons and go somewhere a little more serious. We'll keep it simple. One letter. V.
Ah. Can you do the opening? Can you do his thing?
Oh.
Can you do the thing?
I have not seen it recently enough to remember much
I
of
can't do the
anything.
thing either, don't worry. So for those of you who don't know who we're talking about the film and comic book masterpiece by Alan Moore. V for Vendetta, played in the movie by Hugo Weaving. Brilliant actor, obviously. And he has an entire monologue in which he only uses words that start with V. Well, there's other words interspersed, but the important words all start with V, and there's a lot of them.
I think most people just remember the
Remember.
Yeah.
Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder treason and plot. Yeah. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Yes.
A character who, if memory serves, we actually never really find out exactly who V is, if I'm not mistaken. Do we find out who V is?
Well, we find out his backstory. We don't. I
don't find out a name.
I don't remember if we find out a name, but we never see a face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so real quick, see if I can do it in one take. Voila, in view, a humble vaudevillian veteran cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the... Yeah, I've lost it.
Vicissitudes.
Vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no more veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified, and has vowed to vanquish these venal and violent, virulent vermin vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition. The only verdict is vengeance, and a vendetta held as a votive, not in vain, for the value of veracity of such shall one day vindicate the vigilant and the virtuous. Verily, you can't.
I can't even do that one.
Yeah, what's that one there? Holy shit, that has too many Y's and S's in it.
Which one? Oh, Vichoise?
Vichoise, perhaps. The Vichoise of verbiage veers most verbose. Let me simply add that it is my good honor to meet you, and you may call me V.
Are you like a crazy person?
I'm quite sure they will say so. So V is a devilish delight, if I might go into D for a bit there. Waka waka.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, I think I'm going to say with 100% certainty that there are more than a few V for Vendetta fans among our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were just going to limit it to there's more than one V for Vendetta fan, in which I would have to point you over to Anonymous. But
well, I don't know if they got it.
No, they didn't get it, but they used the fucking masks anyway.
For the problems that the character and the story and whatnot have, I think there's a lot there that can be seen as positive, and there's things to be learned.
Yeah, no, there's always things to be learned from an Alan Moore shtick. But, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can say more about V without just talking about the plot of V for Vendetta.
Exactly. Because
that's pretty much it. I mean, that monologue really explains it all if you know what all of those words mean. Which, obviously, we don't. Now, V is a really, really good example that I'm upset I didn't think of sooner. But yeah, no, if we're talking about that sort of anti-hero kind of thing, we gotta talk real quick, because I say so, about Repo, the genetic opera, and the titular Repo Man, played by Anthony Head, who has some fucking pipes on him, if you didn't know.
So many pipes that he has different pipes for different personalities of his character.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And I might mention here that if you don't know who Anthony Head is, you might be familiar with him for his work as Giles on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So,
Repo... And a more obscure reference would be that he actually is a musician.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's like so fucking... He's one of those guys who's so disgustingly talented. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he was Dr. Frankenfurter with Craig Ferguson as Brad.
I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
It's
That's
amazing.
The best thing.
I will have to experience that at some point.
It's on YouTube. It's
okay.
A real bad recording because it's real old, but it's on YouTube.
Oh.
Alright, so anyway. So Repo the Genetic Opera is a dystopian future in which people buy and sell and make payments on organs. And if they can't make their payments, then the company, Gene Co. is what it's called, sends in their Repo Man, played by, as I said.
Everyone needs these organ transplants because there's some kind of disease that went out and wiped it out.
Mm-hmm.
But also, because of this situation, designer organs are a thing.
Yeah. And so there's a character who has eyes that can shoot holograms and things like that. But, good? You were gonna say?
I was just going to throw on my catchphrase, what's quickly becoming my catchphrase. Why not?
Yeah. But I'm assuming you haven't seen it, or have you?
I actually have not, which is really disappointing. I know
Right.
it's quite popular and it's supposed to be quite good.
Well, it's quite popular and it's quite good, and I might make you listen to some of the songs after the podcast is over while we're waiting for it to fucking render, or whatever you would call it with fucking audio.
It is very hit and very miss simultaneously, but it is definitely worth watching.
Sure.
Yes.
Paris Hilton.
Jesus
we
should mention Paris Hilton. Did you know Paris Hilton is in Repo the Genetic Opera?
I believe I had heard that.
Okay.
And she
plays
herself.
herself.
Sure, why not?
She plays herself in this ghastly dystopian future, and she's super self-aware about it, and it's amazing.
Her face falls off.
Her fucking face falls off! So cool.
And she is specifically playing an heiress with no talent.
Yeah.
That is trying really hard to have an entertainment career, even though she has no talent.
It's amazing.
She's the best.
The girl from Spy Kids is also in it.
And, Sarah fucking Brightman.
Yeah, whatever the girl from Spy Kids' name is.
God, I used to know this.
Yeah. Either way, she can also sing, which is, kudos for her. She's good. Tons of great songs in it. My personal favorite being Legal Assassin, sung by Anthony Head. Close second is Let the Monster Rise, sung by both Anthony Head and the name escaping me girl from Spy Kids.
Alexa Vega.
Alexa Vega. Thank you very much, dear. Alright, so yeah, that is Repo the Neck Opera. Zydrate comes in a little glass vial.
Let's stick movies and discuss, call them whatever you like. Joe, Manco, Blondie, The Man with No Name.
The Man with No Name, yes. I was going to make a brief honorable mention here for The Man with No Name because I don't watch that much Clint Eastwood.
I have not seen all of the movies. What I have seen, I'm a big fan of. I highly recommend going after those.
Okay.
He's such an interesting character without even hardly saying a word throughout these movies. He's able to really drag you along for the ride. It's really cool.
Yeah, and he's one of the characters that is really like a lot of the inspiration for a lot of these characters that we've been talking about.
What's really interesting is that he himself was actually inspired by another mysterious stranger from a previous film,
Right.
The Ronin from Yojimbo.
I was gonna say there's probably some Kurosawa influence.
Yep. It's like so many other westerns.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Kurosawa and John Ford just there.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Man with No Name. We should talk then because that opens up a new topic of Mysterious Stranger, which is the Drifter, which is, as the title character of The Man with No Name. He drifts on into town as I think almost every single goddamn western starts. We can talk a bit about the Lone Rangers. There's not much to say there. That movie was awful. The old shows have problems, but one of the things that I grew up with naturally.
I did too. Yeah.
But then we can talk about the Drifter as far as anime goes, because boy howdy is that trope popular in anime. We've got Vash the Stampede from Trigon. We've got Kenshin Himura from Rurouni Kenshin. We've got XYZ. Like, I could go on for hours about that particular one, just going down a list of anime. It's like, oh yeah, that one starts like that, that one starts like that, that one starts like that. That kind of thing. It's the same deal with westerns, really. Like, do you have any particular fondness for any Drifter start anime?
I mean, Vash is definitely probably my favorite.
Yeah.
One could make the argument that the what's his name? Gundam Wing.
Oh, yeah.
He shows up and nobody has a clue who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's just suddenly there at the school.
Yeah. How about you, do? Do you have any anime that start like that you prefer?
I am unfortunately woefully undereducated as far as anime goes, but while we're on Drifters, there is also the Mysterious Stranger from Fallout.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. You guys go ahead, because as I've said before,
I never use VATS.
Okay.
Like, never, ever, ever use VATS.
Explain why that's important!
So, in the Fallout games, and he appears in, I think, all of them, but in the main games...
even in Shelter.
Yeah. Actually, that isn't a thing in 1 and 2, so how does he, and I think he or she, because it can be either in 1 or 2, how does that work?
I've only played New Vegas and 4 so far,
okay.
So I couldn't tell you much about 1, 2, or 3.
Well, there are a number of... I've only played 3 New Vegas and 4, but I imagine perks are still a thing in 1 and 2, and you can take a perk that causes a mysterious stranger to appear and kill whoever you're fighting for you. In VATS, which is like you can go from playing first-person real-time to pausing the game and picking your shots.
It basically is a bullet time function.
Yeah.
Like old Max Payne kind of.
So I honestly didn't know that was optional. I just thought that was how the combat worked.
No, I refuse to use VATS. In fact, I'm not even entirely sure how to use it.
I used it a lot in 3 and a fair amount in New Vegas. I don't use it in 4 much. Partially because they changed it so it just slows down time, which makes it a lot less useful and harder to work with.
Yeah, it's basically a frustrating, time-consuming cold shot kind of.
I end up using VATS a lot more once I actually have the perk, because it's an auto kill in the games that I've played, which is fantastic. You do find in New Vegas what is probably the mysterious stranger's son.
Really?
Yes. You know the guy... Have you done the quest for the tops where you have to find the musical performers?
It's been quite a while since I've played New Vegas now. That sounds familiar, but I can't say that.
One of the people you can recruit for that is... There's a guy camping near a billboard somewhere. And when he's hanging out with the guitar, so you can get him to go perform at the tops. When you talk to him, he's out looking for his dad. He doesn't know... His dad just left to wander the wastes, and his mom describes him as a mysterious sort.
Okay.
And he gives you a gun that was his father's gun, that is identical to the gun that the mysterious stranger uses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One of the few things that I've acquired through osmosis as far as Fallout goes, y'all should talk about the Silver Spectre.
Yes.
I was actually thinking about mentioning the Silver Spectre. I haven't dug in on that storyline too much. There's so much in 4, and I have a bad habit of just like playing
You
the same
should
stuff
do
in a
it
different
because
way over and
Kent-
over again.
You should do it because Kent is a precious, precious cinnamon roll, and you should do whatever you can to make him happy.
Are you going to explain what the Silver Spectre is, dear, at any
The
point?
Silver Spectre is an old comic book and radio show character. You first, I think, encounter it when you're looking for another character in the game, Nick Valentine, who's he's also an old detective archetype, but when you're looking for him, you pick up Silver Spectre Radio, which is a radio station that plays the Silver Spectre radio shows. Eventually, you meet Kent, who is the person who runs that radio station. He's this sweet little ghoul that hangs out in the memory...
Memory Den?
Yeah, he hangs out in the memory den. And he has you go rob an abandoned comic store where they were getting ready to film the Silver Spectre movie so that you can get the replica gun and costume.
So yeah, I've stumbled across the gun and costume accidentally, but I've never purposefully pursued any of that quest line.
And then he sends you to go kill a bunch of not good people as the Silver Spectre. There's a guy who's selling drugs to kids. I forget who else he sends you after. But you do this long enough, and then Hancock, the mayor of the town that he lives in, is like, hey, there are these raiders that are a problem. If they were to fall to the Silver Spectre, I wouldn't complain. And, it's Hancock. He's gonna give you real good drugs if you do it. And also, he is a sweetheart who you should also do everything in your power to make happy.
That's another storyline that I need to pursue at some point.
My ghoul husband.
All right, then.
Anyway.
As her boyfriend, I'll just leave that there.
Anyway, and yeah, the raiders are all, what the fuck is going on? Because you're talking at them in the dumbest fake voice, dressed up as the Silver Spectre. And you have to be wielding the Silver Spectre gun, which isn't great. But, it's worth it for the plot.
Sure.
Brief honorable mention here again. I feel like we're going to have to say this every episode, but none of us are fans of Star Wars. Boba Fett's kind of cool, though.
He is kind of cool.
He's cool until the prequels, but anyway.
Well, everything is kind of cool until the prequels.
Yeah. Yeah, since we're talking about Silver Spectre and we can kind of shoehorn back into comic books, you wanted to talk about a very specific series of comics.
I wanted to talk about The Wicked and Divine, which is a comic series in which every 90 years a pantheon of gods are reincarnated. They live for 2 years in some degree of intense fame. In the modern run that the comic takes place during, they're all pop stars. And then they die after 2 years. And within that pantheon...
I feel like you want to say something here.
I don't know.
Is it perhaps your catchphrase?
It's probably my catchphrase, yeah.
Which was my catchphrase when we worked together.
That does, yeah, I do remember you saying that quite a bit.
Catchphrases via osmosis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the first kind of arc of the comic, our main character, who's not of the pantheon, ends up befriending Lucifer, because that's a person. And Lucifer is framed for murder. And she seems to be the only one that gives a shit. And so Lucifer, while being dragged out in handcuffs, tells Amaterasu to find Ananke.
Amaterasu.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
was gonna correct you on that.
Thank
I was
you.
trying to keep myself from doing it.
No.
Mythology
please
nerds
do.
unite!
Well, more, I was a really big fan of Japanese culture. I still kind of am, and actually subscribed to Shinto for a while.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just a humongous mythology nerd. That's it.
That's
if,
fair.
If I am fucking up important cultural things, please correct me. There's a whole bunch of who is Ananke, and they work out that she's in Greek mythology at least responsible for fate. But I mean, you don't see her for a long time. She barely talks. When you do finally see her, she's always wearing this beaded mask, so you can't really see her face.
Mm-hmm.
And she sets herself up kind of like a mother figure, a guiding influence on the Pantheon. And then she murders one of them. She shows up after Lucifer breaks out of prison, goes, "I love you," snaps her fingers, and Lucifer's head explodes.
And we'll leave that
Spoilers
there as
for
far
The
as
Wicked and the
spoilers.
Divine.
Yeah. It's a spoilerific podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, you pretty much spoiled Fallout by now.
So there's a lot of not knowing exactly what the nature of the Pantheon are, especially Ananke's role within it. I can't even Google the character without stumbling across spoilers, which I am still salty about, even if they confirmed my fan crack theory.
Anyway, so before she gets too angry about that, I'll give another couple mentions from anime here. We got a really, really old one. We got Racer X from Speed Racer, who, as everybody watching the show knows, is Speed Racer's brother. But Speed Racer obviously doesn't because he's Racer X. What's more important than Speed Racer, though, is Dexter's Laboratory, which does a parody episode, which is probably better than the entire fucking series of Speed Racer, with Racer D, another anime reference, the Great Saiyaman, or sorry, excuse me, the Great Saiyaman, who dabbed before dabbing was cool. And,
Yep.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know what to say about him. He's Gohan. Gohan's a fucking dork.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. He's Gohan being a huge dork, and that's pretty much it. It does give a little bit more story to probably one of the best characters in Dragon Ball Z, Videl. Videl is probably the most intelligent person in the entire series, because it takes her 2 seconds to figure out that Great Saiyaman is Gohan, which would have taken every other character in the series till the end of the arc.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, this is standard tropey action boys comics.
Yeah.
The characters don't need to be smart. They need to kick ass.
Yeah.
End of discussion.
Yes, but Videl is the coolest character for also being the most intelligent character. I should mention she has some cool moments in Super in which she continues to take no bullshit. I'm super upset that her and her pixie cut aren't in Dragon Ball FighterZ, but we'll move on from that. One of the really, really cool anime from, my formative anime years is Full Metal Alchemist. And we could talk about the Drifter a little bit there because in the first, like with a lot of anime, in the first arc or so, you don't get the main character being the main character until the tail end of the arc. One of the funny tropes with Full Metal Alchemist is the title character is the Full Metal Alchemist, but everybody mistakes his brother for him because his brother's wearing a full suit of armor. And so, oh, you must be the Full Metal Alchemist. No, it's the short guy standing next to me. La 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 la. But anyway, the mysterious stranger from Full Metal Alchemist I wanted to talk about wasn't the hero, though. It's the villain. And this is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood for people watching the anime, just the manga for people who like the actual stories. And read, yes. But Father is spoilerific, so I won't go into him too much. Like, he's mysterious, he is the big bad, he is mentioned by name for most of the series and isn't actually seen until I think the second half. But what's weird and disturbing is he looks like Edward Elric's father, but he totally isn't, or is he not? Yes, so he's very mysterious and diabolical. And yes. Do you have anything? Did you watch Brotherhood, or did you watch the original series?
I watched the original.
Okay, the original series not bad. Brotherhood's better.
Seems to be general agreement. If for no other reason, then it's more true to the...
It's more true to the comic, and like a lot of things. Well, if we're talking about OVAs, which I think Brotherhood technically counts as, because it's something that's redone later and is more accurate to the... I don't know what the actual definition of OVA is, but...
Original video animation.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Anyway, with those, there is Hellsing, the anime, and then Hellsing Ultimate. Hellsing, the anime, is nasty crap. Never watch it. It's awful. The animation's awful. It's hideous. Don't. It's bad. But Hellsing Ultimate directly follows almost frame for frame the manga, and it is beautiful and amazing. And I mentioned in the last episode who the villain of this particular series is. As you go through the series, you are met with the mysterious organization Millennium. And Millennium is found out later to be the Millennium Army or something, which was another name for the Nazi Party. And lol, it's Nazis in Argentina. Like,
of course it is.
yeah, there's a bit where they go to Brazil and Alucard kills a bunch of people, like he always does, because he's
That's
Alucard.
his thing. That's
Yeah.
what he does.
Yeah, the bird of Hermes is my name, eating my wings to make me tame. Sorry, it's Hellsing references, not important. Yeah, it's things and stuff and things.
Have I ranted about Night in the Woods yet this episode?
Nope.
Okay. There is Night in the Woods. I have almost certainly already talked about. I am almost certainly going to talk about it every other episode, if not more often. It's my favorite video game. And when the plot finally kicks in, it's because there's a ghost that kidnaps a kid.
Oh,
And nobody believes the main character.
understandable.
Yeah, and then they spend the rest of the movie trying to figure out if the ghost is actually a ghost, who the fuck this ghost is, why he's following them around, all of this shit. His name is Ide. He's spooky as hell. You never get the answer.
Oh, cool. But I think you forgot about somebody you wanted to talk about, dear.
The Rippers?
Not the Rippers, no.
Okay.
We'll talk about the Rippers if you want to talk about the Rippers, but you never wrote this down.
I did forget to post about that. Yes, the Blue Spirit from Avatar: The Last Airbender. No? Okay.
I mean, hey, we can talk about
We
Blue
can talk
Spirit
about
too.
that one.
I'm
It
talking
seems
about
like it's probably
something
an important
What
one.
the
I'm
fuck
talking
are
about
you
something
trying-
nobody posted, because you mentioned that somebody in Night in the Woods wasn't able to tell if it was a ghost or a regular person, kind of like an episode of
Scooby-Doo? Sure sounds like Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you forgot you wanted to talk about Mr. E.
Oh god, yes!
We got there, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. E is also a spooky, mysterious person voiced by Lewis Black. It's amazing.
Okay, I don't like Scooby-Doo, but if you tell me that Lewis Black is involved,
okay.
I will get on board.
You need to watch Mystery Incorporated.
Honestly, it's not.
I apparently do.
Here's the thing about Mystery Incorporated. It's Scooby-Doo, but it's not Scooby-Doo. It's
Like-
the characters, but it's not Scooby-Doo.
Grit your teeth and work your way through the Velma Shaggy bullshit. It ends quickly, and after that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, getting off Mr. E,
Anyway.
unless you want to talk more about Mr. E specifically.
I will continue to, because I would like to talk about how, you know, they're happy-go-lucky high school kids searching for mysteries, and then they start getting the actual mystery, and they get these weird-ass voice-recorded messages that are Lewis Black, but
Yeah.
from Mr. E, and he sends them weird shit, and he sends them to weird places, and you don't know why, and you don't know how it all ties together.
Please tell me this character is appropriately angry.
I mean, it's Lewis Black. He's going to sound angry whether or not
That's
he
what
is.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, this character
He's
needs to
actually
be angry. if
frighteningly
it's-
calm.
Yeah, no, Lewis
Really?
Black has a lot more range than people give him credit for because of his shtick.
Well, that's
But-
fair.
He absolutely gets angry eventually, I am certain, based on who the character ends up being, even if I can't remember the specific instance. But
Yeah. There's also, one of my favorite voice actors, Kronk. The
Was it
cop.
Patrick Warburton?
oh yeah,
Yeah, Patrick Warburton plays a cop in the show as a recurring character. I fucking
what
love
he
Patrick
does.
Warburton so much. One of my favorite voice actors, though that list is increasingly long as I find out more, you know. But
And Harlan Ellison plays himself.
who's Harlan Ellison?
Sci-fi horror author.
Thank you.
actually not a great human being, but I love his character. I love his character's interaction with their fake H.P. Lovecraft, which I believe is Professor Hatecraft.
Yes.
Who is
I remember that
precious
episode.
cinnamon roll in every way that the actual Lovecraft needed to die in a fire.
Fucking Lovecraft has mysterious spookily things, but no real mysterious... Well, no, there is Should we mention Nyarlathotep?
He's my
Nyarlathotep?
favorite friggin' god.
I'd like to mention for posterity that when Matt said Nyarlathotep, he made a disturbing humping motion that I don't think is appropriate for Lovecraft.
I want to be absolutely clear, the humping motion had nothing to do with anything more than the fact that I think Nyarlathotep is a pretty cool character. He is my favorite of all of the Pantheon-type characters.
Like, this is Lovecraft and not Warhammer 40k. Slanesh is not involved in any way, so let's... Anywho, you want to talk about Nyarlathotep?
I would love to talk about Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep is a lot to unpack. He is, of course, a mysterious stranger, but he's a different mysterious stranger all the time. You never know what you're going to get with Nyarlathotep.
Yeah, I believe in his titular appearance, he causes most of a town to go crazy.
Yeah, so he feeds off of fame and people, looking up to him. He's like that that standard god character that like he needs people to worship him in order for him to survive. That's what satiates him.
Right.
Is people looking up to him in that manner. So he has to travel from place to place, sapping that kind of thing from all of the people, and of course, because he's a Lovecraft deity, that means he's going to make people crazy in the process.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this particular episode is we've mentioned tons of stuff. Sometimes we've stumbled upon spoilers, but I'm trying to keep it to where like we've got the really big names here that everyone knows. Yeah. Because I'd love to talk more about Malazan Book of the Fallen. But I really don't want to spoil those mysterious strangers because there's a lot of that kind of trope in Malazan Book of the Fallen with it's the gods feeding off the power of belief. And so it's... Anyway.
It's a standard thing with deities that they can't survive without...
Their worshippers.
Without worship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's done to death. Look at a great example of that you're probably going to have to cut out because there's not a mysterious stranger kind of thing is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?
I mean, there's mysterious strangers in that particular anime, which has one of the most hilarious titles in all of anime.
Yeah.
But
and one of those wonderfully long anime titles.
Yeah. There's plenty of mysterious strangers in there. There's plenty of gods and all that being all ooky spooky and whatnot. But yeah, it's a common enough occurrence. I don't know how much of this will stay in because it is a little bit off topic.
Chop a lot of this out, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's fine. But with Nyarlathotep, I think we covered it pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's him.
That's him. That's his shtick. That's his doohickey.
Yeah.
Lovecraft's fun. Grains of salt.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Does so many things.
As we should salt the fucking earth over anything in fucking Lovecraft's thing.
Yeah. And Harlan Ellison is Harlan Ellison. I'm still angry about
Harlan
I have
Ellison.
no mouth and I must scream.
Oh.
Which
didn't know there was anything up with that. I'll leave that as
a
topic for another time.
It doesn't go into mysterious strangers, so I will cut it, but
yeah. So, let's move from dark elder gods of unspeakable horror to Kingdom Hearts. Because I think Kingdom Hearts might have the highest body count of people in black robes with deep hoods that you can't see the face. And so we got to talk about mysterious strangers in that case. Because after the first game, in which I think, except for in the later mixes, because they re-release, the first game over and over again with more content in it as, fucking buy our game again. But in the originals... this particular series of Mysterious Strangers didn't appear until the second game, Chain of Memories, which was for the Game Boy Advance. And in it, there are mysterious strangers with mysterious hoods that had the black screen in front of them like you buy on Halloween. And it's the Organization 13, which there's really not much to talk about here because we'd have to unpack the bird's nest that is the plot of Kingdom Hearts. But I'll mention the Organization 13. I'll mention in the later games there's another mysterious figure he's probably the guy that ordered all the Dark Hoods in the first place. He's called the Master, and we don't know shit about him. So there's still mysterious strangers happening in Kingdom Hearts, even though the supposed last game is coming out later this year or early next
You never know
year.
if they're going to unpack all that and take all
you
the
never
hoods
know.
off.
Yeah, you never know how much people are going to unpack as far as their mysteries goes, which I honestly prefer less unpacking.
I'm okay. I mean, there are, like we've already discussed, situations where taking the hood off ruins the character.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to shoehorn this in this way, because I'd like us to move into Lord of the Rings, because when we're talking about...
Somebody had to bring him up.
Well, no, it's... you know which of us is going to bring it up, yes. But when we're talking about like mysteries that don't need to be solved in Lord of the Rings, I'd like to talk very, very briefly about the Blue Wizards. Because in the lore of Lord of the Rings, there are 5 wizards that came to Middle-earth. There's Gandalf, there's Saruman, there's Radagast, and then there's 2 blue wizards whose names we don't know. What's interesting about wizards in Lord of the Rings, yes, I'm going to fucking ramble about this shit, but wizards in Lord of the
Silmarillion time!
Yeah. So wizards are demigods or angels or however you want to interpret it, put into human form for their tasks. But the blue wizards have their names as the demigods or the angels, but they don't have names as wizards, where Gandalf isn't called Gandalf when he's being a demigod. That's pretty much as far as that goes, because they're not the principal mysterious strangers, because a lot of people want the answers to that question, like, what the fuck's up with Tom Bombadil? What the fuck's up with the Blue Wizards? What the fuck? I don't care!
There are plenty of characters there that, you kind of want to know, but they're on the side.
No,
so.
the fuzzy
Where are the
edges of...
Entwives?
Where are the Entwives? Yes, that one will haunt me. But that's the point, is it will fucking haunt me. Like, the fuzzy edges of the story are the most important bits in a lot of this, and... doesn't fucking matter who the fucking Blue Wizards are. Leave it alone, god damn it.
None of it matters because the only dark, hidden, secret character that really matters is the one that turns out to be a king.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of my favorite poems in Lord of the Rings. It's one of my favorite characters, naturally. It's Aragorn.
Yeah.
And Aragorn has one of the best opening shots as far as Lord of the Rings movies goes, where he's just sitting there in the corner and you can't see his face, and then he puffs on his pipe and the fire lights up his eyes and it's all mystical and shit, because fire totally does that, and it totally wasn't a lamp. Anyway,
it's magic, damn it.
Yes, it's movie magic, which is the important kind, because it's the kind people can do.
Yep.
But yeah, no, Aragorn's a real cool character. He's very, very different as far as book and movie goes. I believe I'm the only one in here who's read the books.
In audiobook form.
Right, I forgot you audiobooked.
As a kid.
I'm used to being the only person in the room who's actually read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's becoming more common.
Yeah, but anyway, so in the books, Aragorn is super hyped to be king. Like, he's like, that's what I want to do, because that's the condition for me marrying the woman I want to marry. And let's fucking do this. Let's go. In the movies, I honestly think Aragorn's a better character, because he's much more reluctant. He knows what'll happen to the woman he loves if they actually end up getting married. So he's kind of like, shit, I really want to marry you, but at the same time, like, you don't have to die, so why make you die? That would be bad. But we'd have a happy life together, and I'd get mine. Anyway, but yeah.
Let me sneak in another movie one here.
Oh, real quick before we move on, I should mention that probably for the shortest amount of time in a lot of these characters' periods of being mysterious is Gandalf. Gandalf just shows up and starts talking at Bilbo at the beginning of The Hobbit, and
that's what he always does.
Yeah, and by the end of the chapter, you know who he is, but he's still Gandalf, and he's still mysterious.
He's still always mysterious, no matter how much you learn about Gandalf. He still manages to be sort of mysterious.
Yes. There is. Anyway, so another movie character.
Another good movie one. I think most people have seen Pulp Fiction
Yes.
and are familiar with The Wolf.
The Wolf. Tell us about him.
There is an interesting bit in the movie where they are transporting...
Making toast. Sorry, what?
They are transporting a gentleman to their mob boss and accidentally blow off his head.
Oh. Yeah.
So they decide to take refuge at the director's house because why not?
Because oh fuck.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. But hey, why not have it be the director's house?
Mm-hmm.
While there, they make a phone call to their mob boss, Marcellus Wallace,
Mm-hmm.
who informs them that the wolf will be coming directly.
Mm.
The wolf shows up, starts barking orders, and handles the situation, and then is gone. For all intents and purposes. There's a little bit more to it, but yeah, the wolf is very, very secret, and you just know that he's the guy that takes care of stuff.
Am I remembering correctly that the wolf is played by the same guy who plays Mr. White?
Harvey Keitel?
Yes. Well, we're talking movies because
Movies,
for this particular universe, they're only mysterious in the movie. There's the Rippers from Tank Girl.
Thank you.
In the comics, they're in no way mysterious. They're kangaroo people. They exist in the world. Deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, like, you hear about them, and you hear that these the terrifying, vicious monsters that live out in the wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
And you're threatened with them. The characters are threatened with them. You don't actually... The first time you see them, Water and Power, who are the bad guys, the evil corporation, are sending Rebecca, Tank Girl, probably, as far as they know, to her death, trying to flush out the Rippers. And they all launch in, and you just see this really chaotic sequence. You just see little flashes here and there. They're wearing full armor, so you can't really see their faces. You just know that they're kangaroo guys that are killing everyone. All these snarling noises. And they're real spooky until Rebecca finally hits her limit and says, fuck this, we're gonna go find the Rippers. And they turn out to be fucking Ice-T and kangaroo makeup.
Oh. Oh dear.
Why not? Why the fuck
It's
not?
amazing.
I mean, Ice-T is also in Johnny Mnemonic. And some hilarious
Also
makeup.
amazing.
Also hilarious makeup. He has an anarchy symbol on his face. Anyway, I'd like to talk about a character that you may or may not be aware of. I don't know how much you watch British television. Do you? Some. Interesting choice of word. Because some say that he never blinks, and that he roams around the woods at night foraging for wolves. Some say he's wanted by the CIA and sleeps upside down like a bat. Some say that he appears on high-value stamps in Sweden and that he can catch fish with his tongue.
I would like to point out that I undoubtedly have seen more of this show than you have.
Probably. Some say that his breath smells of magnesium, and he's scared of bells. Some say he naturally faces magnetic north, and all his legs are hydraulic. Yeah, we're talking about the fucking Stig from Top Gear, guys. This is a funny show, however you feel about the actors involved, but it's super funny. The Stig is amazing, and is kept pretty much a secret as a luchador. Like, when people found out the identity of the first Stig...
it was well after he had retired.
Yeah, it was well after he had retired, yeah. But, and then, as they found out the identity of the second Stig, they made a third Stig, you know, it's just...
Yeah, and we never find out who the Stig is until well after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, it manages to keep the mystery going, that, you know, you still never know who the Stig is.
Mm-hmm.
You can only know who the Stig was.
Yeah. And we should probably explain what the fuck we're talking about. Top Gear is a British show about cars. Stig is a driver who sets the lap times for when they're talking about different cars. And
He's a professional race car driver, and whenever you see him, he is in all white, a complete racing suit with a complete close-face racing helmet, and the
never speaks.
The visor on the helmet has a dark mirror finish on it, so you can't see his face. You just know that he is the best.
Yeah.
And he will give you the lap time you need.
Yeah, and again, I should mention he never talks.
Never speaks.
Yeah, it's mentioned because there was a dispute when one of the Stigs wrote an autobiography, and Top Gear wanted him to not. I think it was actually the second one.
Was it the second that did?
Yeah, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but the first Stig was actually decked out all in black.
Yeah, I believe for the first season. And they switched to
the second season, they didn't introduce the concept. Top Gear was a very different show in the first season than when it was rebooted.
Well, we're all accustomed to the Clarkson, Hammond, May trio, but actually there was a set of hosts before them.
Yeah, and it kind of went... And so they made a bunch of ideas. They added a live studio audience. They added all the banter and all the shtick and the antics and the madcap stunts and all that. And then, of course, they added the Stig.
He also, by the way, has an ever-changing taste in music.
Yes, that's one of the very interesting things that
which has included power ballads, one-hit wonders, easy listening, country and western, Morse
code,
you
scroll down faster than
whale sounds, Baroque music, advertising jingles, ABBA in French and Spanish, the Bangles, speeches of Margaret Thatcher, self-help tapes, and so on and so forth.
I'm sorry. Margaret Thatcher?
Yes.
Why?
Because they ADR stuff over him driving.
Every season they change what's playing in the car when they show him setting the lap time.
Yeah, I mean, it's ADR. It's not actually what he's listening to.
Yeah, there was actually a season during a particular sporting event when he was listening to Vuvuzelas.
That's amazing. See, that makes sense. Margaret Thatcher.
It's a joke!
It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's a terrible joke, but it's Top Gear. What do you want?
The point is that there's something interesting playing, supposedly, when the Stig is setting his lap time.
All right. I think we've got time for a few brief honorable mentions here. We can go deeper into them if we want to. Do you want to talk a little bit about Avatar, actually?
Yes, the Blue Spirit.
The Blue Spirit.
So, in Avatar, The Last Airbender, Aang, the titular airbender, gets captured. The Fire Nation wants him because the Fire Nation's trying to take over the world, and he's probably going to fuck that up for them.
So many things are titular this episode. It's true, though. Anyway. Not inaccurate.
He is captured not by the kid that's been hunting him, but by General Zhao, who is also trying to catch the airbender.
Yes, probably the biggest asshole in the series besides Zuko's dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's all chained up on the ship, and we're like, oh crap, Aang is screwed. This is the end. And then some guy in a blue mask with dual swords shows up and sets him free. And I think that happens again during the battle at the North Pole.
I think Blue Spirit might show up at the Battle of the North Pole, but I don't know if Zuko actually bothers with the mask or not. Because spoilers, it's fucking Zuko.
Yeah. Zuko, who's the kid who's been hunting the Avatar.
Yeah, it's not spoilers because it's revealed to Aang at the end of the episode because he gets knocked unconscious by firebending.
Right.
And then Aang takes off the mask and it's Zuko, and then Aang fucking bolts. So, what's up?
Don't they have like a conversation in the cave about, hey, do you think we could have been friends? I feel like that happened during that story arc.
That happened in North Pole. So I don't know if he actually had the mask at that point, or if he was just fucking talking to Zuko.
No, I think they faked Zuko's death so that Zuko can go off wearing the mask and fuck with Zhao.
No, they fake Zuko's death, but he doesn't bother with the mask.
Okay.
I don't think the mask ever comes back, honestly.
That's a shame.
Yeah. But with fucking... I mean, yeah, you could look it up and see if I'm wrong or not.
I think he might even bring it back when he goes and helps Katara hunt down the guy that killed her mom.
Oh, maybe.
Just for yayas. Well, she's not killing him for yayas, but bringing back the mask for yayas.
For grandmothers in Russian? What?
Anyway.
You know you can just say shiggles, right? Anyway, with Avatar, there's actually more than one instance of the mysterious stranger because of hallucinogens.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, in the swamp episode where they're in the Great Swamp, Aang hallucinates, or does he? A young girl in a very
It's a very ethereal white floaty dress with 2 flying boars.
Yeah, and so he hallucinates or doesn't hallucinate her a few times, and then when they get to Ba Sing Se,
Yeah, and he knows that's as far as he understands, that's the swamp telling him who's supposed to teach him earthbending.
yeah, and lo and behold, when they get to Ba Sing Se, they find Toph, who is... I don't know if it's Ba Sing Se or not,
They
but
get
it is...
to an important earth village.
Important earthbending city. Important earthbending city.
That has to be Ba Sing Se.
It might be. Who
Yeah.
knows? We'll have to watch Avatar again.
Anyway.
Oh no. So,
They find a family whose crest has
flying
the white boars.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they have a daughter.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, hey, you're supposed to teach me earthbending. And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? She's a blind little girl. She can't earthbend.
JK, she's a pro wrestler. Also true. She's blind, but plays the blind bandit in the
Local
in the local earthbending pro
Pro
wrestling circuit.
pro bending,
Pro
technically.
bending, yes, but I mean it's pro bending, but it's the universe's version of pro wrestling, which is actually very popular in Japan as well. Right? If you didn't know.
No.
Not the pro bending, the pro wrestling. Anyhow.
I'm sure they're working on pro bending.
Yeah. It's just Bender from Futurama, just
Bending stuff all day.
waka waka. Anyhow, third mysterious stranger in Avatar is Mr. Splody.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the guy with the tattoo of an eye on his forehead that can shoot lasers and shit. He's fairly mysterious to the title characters, but that's about it. Like, he chases them around shooting lasers at them. That's all they know. That's all he does.
Alright, I guess that counts as a mystery.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's kind of like just It Follows, basically, where they always know he's behind them chasing them and probably is going to show up in the episodes every now and then. Just, fuck, laser guy, run! I mean, there's not much else to say about Avatar, is there, as far as the topic of this episode? 1,000-yard stairs? Yeah, so, well, might as well do a bit of honorable mentioning now. We can mention the Green Ranger from Power Rangers, who also has, I think, a title, doesn't he? Sorry, he became a UFC athlete after Power Rangers. I don't know if he actually has a title or not. But anywho, we can mention the Phantom Stranger from comic books, because he's Phantom and a Stranger. We can mention Agent Smith from The Matrix. We didn't really talk much about The Matrix. I don't know if anybody here is a big fan.
I haven't seen
Yes,
it.
that one movie was very good.
Yes. All right.
I certainly enjoyed the one movie that was made by that name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so nobody here is a Whovian, right?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll mention the Doctor from Doctor Who. We can mention What Are You Buying? The merchant from Resident Evil 4. We can mention... I already mentioned the race of D. We can make a brief mention of Genkai from Yu Yu Hakusho, who has a period of mysterious strangeness in the tournament arc. We can mention the Predator from Predator. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not the modern one. The modern one was unfortunately very, very poorly edited. But in the original, the Predator is the mysterious Predator for a long-ass time. And there is a big reveal where he shows what he looks like in his real face. And he is one ugly motherfucker. I think that'll about do us, will it not?
There's the Stranger in a Strange Land from Stranger in a Strange Land.
Okay.
Michael, who is a human that comes back from the failed colony on Mars, and he is very, very different, and they don't really know who he is at first, and they eventually figure it out, but because he was basically raised by Martians, he is very, very different. He thinks differently, and he doesn't really understand how people work, and it's really interesting, and then he becomes a Jesus allegory, and that's disappointing.
All right. Okay, so I think we can call it there. Matt, if you had to recommend one thing from this podcast, what would you recommend people check out?
You know, I frequently say that I have not dug into this storyline and that storyline, and yet I have invested hundreds of hours into Fallout 4. Play Fallout 4 if you're the weird last person on Earth who hasn't.
I'm not gonna. Too bad. Dear, if you had to recommend one of the...
fucking read The Wicked and the Divine by Kieran Gillian. It's amazing. Ignore my spoilers. There are more mysteries. Read it. It's beautiful. Oh my god. Also play Night in the Woods.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead and recommend Lucha Underground because it's dumb, goofy fun. That's pretty much it. It's just watch the stuff. It's fucking stupid and awesome. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. If you'd like more of Matt Wimmer, you can find him over on YouTube at Bismuth Telluride Powered. That's BI2TE3 Powered. If you'd like more of Morgan Fay, she's a frequent guest over at Picklewater Industries on YouTube. And if you'd like to reach the podcast, you can find us at fightmenerdpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at FMNerdPodcast.